And welcome to Money Matters. I'm Alicia Davis in New York, and we are talking today about ethics and how they can help guide your decisions in work and life. And we're joined by Clinton D. Korver. He is the founder and CEO of Decision Street, and he's also author of the new book, Ethics for the Real World, Creating a Personal Code to Guide Decisions in Work and Life. Clinton, thanks for joining us today.
Alicia, it's a pleasure.
Now, what are some of the ethical decisions that people make every day in work and life, whether they notice them or not?
Well, it's a lot of small things. It can be white lies, promises, secrets. It's the interactions we have with people on a daily basis.
And now, what are some of the most common ethical lapses that we see people make, particularly in their work lives?
Well, I'd say white lies, that category is the most common, and it can be anything as small as telling somebody, having your assistant say, "I'm not in the office," to a caller when you don't want to take the call, all the way up to the big stuff, like Bear Stearns right now and their hedge fund managers, and were they appropriate with their investors?
Now, let's start with those small white lies, like having your assistant say that you're out. How harmful are those ethical lapses?
Well, the actual lie itself may not be that harmful. The real damage comes internally, because you build up habits of unethical behavior. And those habits can slide into more serious ethical transgressions.
And one of the things that I find so interesting is the question, how can science be applied to these lapses and to ethics?
Well, that's actually a relatively new development in the last 40 years. We found out a lot about the psychology of making decisions, and that psychology and the insights there can be equally applied to ethical decisions.
Now, I want to go through this because I think this is very interesting. You have come up with 4 key points to help master the art of skillful ethical decision making, and I want to go through these. The first thing you say is identify potential compromises in your own life. What do you mean by this?
Well, a lot of problems happen when people are asleep to their ethical compromises. We rationalize. We say things like, everybody else is doing it, which, by the way, Warren Buffett calls the 5 most dangerous words in business. So the very first step is to open your eyes and actually see the ethical transgressions that you encounter.
All right, and the next point that you say is applying distinctions to clarify your ethical thinking. Tell us about that.
Well, ethics doesn't have to be difficult. A lot of times ethics become difficult or seem difficult because they get layered on with all kinds of other issues. Legal issues, for example. Just because something's legal doesn't make it ethical. So to strip away the legal issues helps to clarify the ethical issue.
All right, and the next tip comes before you need to make a decision. You say commit in advance to ethical principles. Tell us about that.
Well, when you're in the throes of an ethical situation, this is the worst time to think about your ethics. It's typically emotional, it's time pressured, and it's very difficult to think about what kind of person you want to be. And so the very most important thing you can do to be skillful in ethical situations is in advance determine what your ethical principles are. And if there are occasions when you're willing to lie, be clear about that up front so you're not caught by surprise in the situation itself.
All right, and finally you say to generate creative alternatives to resolve dilemmas. What do you mean by that?
Well, nothing solves a difficult situation better than a creative alternative. So a lot of people find themselves in difficult situations. They think, oh, I either have to lie or not lie. And in fact, there might be really creative things you can do in that situation that accomplishes the same objective.
Now, can you give us an example of that?
Well, sure. So let's say you've got a customer who wants to buy 2 products from you. You're a salesperson, and you know these products are going to be updated with a new product a month from now. And so your question might be, do I tell this customer or do I not tell that customer? Well, one thing you can do here is ask questions about what is the customer trying to accomplish by buying these 2 things right now. And so by exploring a little bit more about what's going on in a situation, you can often identify interesting ways to solve a situation as opposed to just assuming that you have to answer the question as it's posed.
All right, very interesting. And now you also in the book, you describe a number of tests for making decisions with ethical clarity, and I thought these were very interesting. One of them is the show test. Explain that to us.
Oh, the other shoe test?
The other shoe test, yes, excuse me.
Right. So the idea is when you start to rationalize, you say things like everybody else is doing it, it makes things confusing. And so these tests help you strip away the rationalizations. So the other shoe. So let's say you're the customer now talking to a supplier. Do you want that supplier to tell you the product's going to be discontinued a month from now? So you put the shoe on the other foot. This is also called the golden rule in some circles.